Chapter 24. An embarrassment to who and what we are. Numb. Rowan could feel himself growing numb, and while it might have been a good thing for his beleaguered sanity, it was not a good thing for his soul. Never lose your humanity, Scythe Faraday had told him, or you'll be nothing more than a killing machine. He had used the word killing rather than gleaning. Rowan hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now he understood. It stopped being gleaning the moment one became desensitized to the act. Yet, this great plane of numbness was not the worst place to be. Numbness was a mere purgatory of greed. No, there was a much worse place, darkness masquerading as enlightenment. It was a place of royal blue studded with diamonds that glistened like stars. No, no, no! Chided Scythe Goddard as he watched Rowan practice bladecraft with a samurai sword on cotton-stuffed dummies. Have you learned nothing? Rowan was exasperated, but he kept it just beneath a simmer, counting to 10 in his head, before turning to face the Scythe, who approached across the expanse of the stage front lawn, now littered with fluff and cottony remains. What did I do wrong this time, Your Honor? To Rowan. The phrase, Your Honor, had become profanity, and he couldn't help but spit it out like one. I cleanly decapitated 5 of them, eviscerated 3, and I severed the aortas of the rest. If any of them had actually been alive, they would be dead now. I did just what you wanted. That's the problem, said the Scythe. It's not what I want, it's what you want. Where is your passion? You talk like a bot. Rowan sighed, seething his blade. Now would come a lecture, or more accurately, an oration, because Scythe Goddard loved nothing more than performing to the gallery, even if it was just a gallery of one. Human beings are predatory by nature, he began. That nature may have been bleached out of us by the sanitizing force of civilization, but it can never be taken from us completely. Embrace it, Rowan. Suckle at its transformative wrist. You may think gleaning is an acquired taste, but it's not. The thrill of the hunt and the joy of the kill simmers in all of us. Bring it to the surface, and then you'll be the kind of Scythe this world needs. Rowan wanted to despise all of this, but there was something about honing one's skill, no matter the nature of that skill, that was rewarding. What he hated was the fact that he didn't hate it. Servants replaced the dummies with fresh effigies, scarecrows with extremely short lifespans. Then Goddard took the samurai blade from him and handed him a nasty-looking hunting knife instead, for a more intimate delivery of death. It's a Bowie knife, like Texan Scythes use, Goddard told him. Take great satisfaction and pleasure in this, Rowan, said Scythe Goddard, or you'll be nothing more than a killing machine. Each day was the same. A morning run with Scythe Rand, weight training with Scythe Chomsky, and a nutritionally precise breakfast prepared by a master chef. Then would come killcraft administered by Scythe Goddard himself. Blades, bows, ballistics, or the use of his own body as a weapon of death. Never poisons, unless they were on the tips of weapons. Gleaning is performed, not administered, Scythe Goddard told him. It is a willful action. To slip into passivity and allow a poison to do all the work is an embarrassment to who and what we are. Goddard's pontifications were constant, and although Rowan often disagreed, he didn't argue or voice his dissent. In this way, Goddard's voice began to supplant his own internal moderator. It became the voice of judgment in his own head. Rowan didn't know why this would be so, yet Goddard was now there in his head, passing judgment on everything he did. The afternoons would be filled with mental training with Scythe Volta, memory exercises, and games to increase cognitive acuity. The smallest part of Rowan's day, just before dinner, was spent in book learning, but Rowan found that the mental training helped him retain the things he learned without the repetition of study. You will know your history, your biochemistry, and your toxins and nauseum to impress at conclave, Goddard told Rowan with a disgusted wave of his hand. I've always found it pointless, but one must impress the academics in the Scythedom as well as the pragmatists. Is that what you are? Rowan asked. A pragmatist? It was Volta who answered him. Scythe Goddard is a visionary that puts him on a level above every other Scythe in Mid-America, maybe even the world. Goddard didn't disagree. And then there were the parties. They came upon the stage like scissors. Everything else stopped. They even took precedence over Rowan's training. He had no idea who organized them or where the revelers came from, but they always came, along with food enough to feed armies and every sort of decadence. Rowan didn't know if it was his imagination, but there seemed to be more sights and known celebrities frequenting Goddard's parties than when he first arrived. In 3 months, the change in Rowan's physique was obvious, and he spent more time than he would want anyone to know, studying the change in the tall mirror in his bedroom. There was a definition everywhere. His abs, his pecs, biceps seemed to inflate out of nowhere, and Scythe Rand constantly slapped his glutes, threatening all sorts of lewd liaisons with him once he was of age. He had finally gotten the hang of his journal, writing things that bordered on thoughtful, but it was still just a sum. He never wrote what he truly felt, for he knew that his private journal was not private at all, and that Scythe Goddard read every last word, so he wrote only things that Goddard would want to read. Although Rowan did not forget his secret pledge to throw the Scythehood to Scythra, there were moments when he willfully suppressed it in his mind, allowing himself to imagine what it would be like to be an ordained Scythe. Would he be the type of Scythe Faraday was? Or would he accept the teachings of Goddard? As much as Rowan tried to deny it, there was logic to Goddard's approach. After all, what creature in nature despised its own existence and felt shame for its means of survival? We became unnatural the moment we conquered death, Scythe Faraday would say. But couldn't that be a reason to seek whatever nature we could find within ourselves? If he learned to enjoy gleaning, would it be such a tragedy? He kept these thoughts to himself, but Scythe Volta could read, if not the specifics, but the general nature of his thoughts. I know you were first brought on as an apprentice for very different traits than the one Scythe Goddard admires, Volta told him. He sees compassion and forbearance as weakness, but you have other traits that are beginning to awaken. You'll be a new order Scythe yet. Of all of Goddard's junior Scythes, Volta was the most admirable and the one Rowan most related to. He imagined they might be friends once they were equals. Do you remember the pain when we beat you down? Volta asked one afternoon at the end of memory training. How could I even forget? There are 3 reasons for it, Volta told him. The first is to connect you with our ancestors, relieving the pain, and the fear of pain, because that's what led to civilization and humanity's advancement beyond its own mortality. The second is a rite of passage, something sorely missing in our passive world. But the third reason may be the most important. Being made to suffer pain frees us to feel the joy of being human. To Rowan, it sounded like more empty platitudes, but Volta wasn't like Goddard that way. He didn't usually speak in lofty, meaningless ideas. I felt plenty of joy in my life without having to be beaten to a pulp, Rowan told him. Volta nodded. You felt some, but just a shadow of what it can be, without the threat of suffering. We can't experience true joy. The best we get is pleasantness. Rowan had no response to that, because it struck him as true. He had led a pleasant life. His biggest complaint was being marginalized, but didn't everyone feel marginalized? They lived in a world where nothing anyone did really mattered. Survival was guaranteed, income was guaranteed, food was plentiful, and comfort was a given. The Thunderhead saw to everyone's needs. When you need nothing, what else can life be but pleasant? You'll get it eventually, Scythe Volta told him. Now that your pain and age are dialed to 0, it's inevitable. Esme remained a mystery. Sometimes she came down to eat with them, sometimes she didn't. Sometimes Rowan would catch her reading in various places around the mansion, mortal-age books made of paper that had apparently been collected by the owner before he surrendered it all to Scythe Goddard. She would always hide from him whatever it was she was reading, as if embarrassed by it. When you become a Scythe, are you going to stay? She asked him. Maybe, he told her, and maybe not. Maybe I won't get to be a Scythe, so maybe I'll be nowhere. She ignored that last part of his answer. You should stay, she told him. The fact that this 9-year-old girl seemed to have a crush on him was one more complication Rowan didn't need. She seemed to get everything she wanted, so did that mean she got him if she wanted that too? My name's Esmeralda, but everyone calls me Esme, she told him when she followed him into the weight room one morning. Usually he'd be nice to younger kids, but since he was told he had to be nice, he suddenly found he didn't want to be. I know, Scythe Goddard told me. You really shouldn't be here. These weights can be dangerous. And you're not supposed to be here without Scythe Chomsky to spot you, she pointed out, then sat down on a bench press, showing no sign of living. If you like, we could play a game or something when you're done with your training. I really don't play games. Not even cards? Not even cards. It must have been boring to be you. Yeah, well, it's not boring anymore. I'll teach you to play cards after dinner tomorrow, she announced. And since Esme got what she wanted, Rowan was there at the appointed time, whether he wanted to be there or not. Esme must be kept happy, Scythe Bolter reminded him after Rowan's card game with her. Why? Rowan asked. Goddard doesn't seem to care about anyone who doesn't wear scythe robes, so why does he care about her? Just be decent to her. I'm decent to everyone, Rowan pointed out. In case you haven't noticed, I'm a decent person. Bolter laughed. Hold on to that for as long as you can, he said, as if doing so would be a very difficult thing. Then came the day Scythe Goddard threw a new wrinkle into the taut fabric of Rowan's life. It came without warning, as did all things Scythe Goddard threw at him. It was during Killcraft. Today, Rowan was working with 2 blades, daggers in each hand. 2 blades were difficult to him. He favored his right and had little dexterity with his left. Scythe Goddard loved to make it difficult for Rowan in these training sessions and always judged him harshly when he didn't rise to some imaginary level of perfection. Yet, Rowan had been surprising himself. He had been getting better at wielding weaponry, and had even drawn forth mild admissions of approval from Goddard. Adequate, Goddard would say, or that wasn't entirely small, high praise from the man. And in spite of himself, Rowan felt satisfaction each time Goddard gave him approval, and he had to admit he was beginning to like wielding deadly weapons. It had grown on him like any other sport, skill for the sake of skill, and then a sense of accomplishment when he did well. On this particular day, things took a severe turn. It was evident from the moment he stepped out onto the lawn that something was up, because the dummies had not yet been put out. Instead, there were at least 12 people milling about the lawn. He didn't get it at first. He should have known that something was different because all the junior Scythes were there today to watch his training. Usually, it was just Goddard. What's going on here? Rowan asked. I can do my training with people in the way. Tell them to clear out. Scythe ran, laughed at him. You're charmingly dense, she said. This ought to be fun, said Scythe Chomsky, folding his arms, ready to release what was to come. And then Rowan finally understood. On the lawn, the people weren't milling around. They were standing, evenly spaced. They were waiting for him. There were to be no more dummies. Now his practice would be the real thing. Killcraft would now truly be Killcraft. No, Rowan said, shaking his head. No, I can do this. Oh, but you will, Scythe Goddard said calmly. But I'm not ordained yet. I can clean. You won't be cleaning, Scythe Bolter said, putting a comforting hand on Rowan's shoulder. There are ambu drones waiting for each of them. As soon as you're done with them, they'll be rushed to the nearest revival center and be as good as new in a day or two. But, Rowan found he had no viable argument except to say, It isn't right. Listen here, Scythe Goddard said, stepping forward. There are 13 people out on that lawn. Every single one of them is here by choice, and every single one of them is being well paid for the service provided. They all know why they are here. They know what their job is. They are more than happy to do it, and I expect the same from you. So do your job. Rowan pulled out his blades and looked at them. Those blades would not be cutting into cotton today, but into flesh. Hearts and jugulars, Scythe Goddard told him. Dispatch your subjects with speed. You will be timed. Rowan wanted to protest, insist that he couldn't do it, but as much as his heart told him he couldn't, his mind knew the truth. Yes, he could. He had been training for precisely this. All he had to do was dial his conscience down to zero. He knew he was capable of that, and it terrified him. "You are to take down 12 of them," Scythe Goddard told him, "and leave the last one alive." "Why leave the last?" "Because I said so." "Come on, we don't have all day," grumbled Chomsky. But the truth Chomsky, a withering glare, then spoke to Rowan with far more patience. "It's just like jumping into a cold pool. The anticipation is much worse than reality. Take the leap, and I promise all will be well." Rowan could live. He could drop his blades and go into the house. He could prove himself to be a failure here and now, and perhaps not have to endure any more of this. But Volta believed in him, and so did Goddard, even if he wouldn't admit it aloud. For why would Goddard set this challenge before him if he didn't believe Rowan would rise to it? Rowan took a deep breath, gripped his blades tightly in both hands, and with a guttural war cry that drowned the alarms blurring in his soul, he launched himself forward. There were men, and there were women. The subjects represented different ages, ethnic mixes, and body types, from muscular to obese to gaunt. He yelled and screamed and grunted with every thrust, slice, and twist. He had trained well. The blade sank in with perfect precision. Once he began, he found he couldn't stop. Bodies fell, and he was on to the next, and the next. They didn't fight back. They didn't run in fear. They just stood there and took it. They were no different from the dummies. He was covered in blood. It stank his eyes. The smell was thick in his nostrils. Finally, he came to the last one. It was a girl his age, and there was a look on her face of resignation, bordering on sorrow. He wanted to end that sorrow. He wanted to complete what he had begun, but he overrode the brutal imperative of the hunter in him. He forced himself not to swing his blades. "Do it," she whispered. "Do it, or I won't get paid." But he dropped his blades to the grass. 12 daddies, one left alive. He turned to the Scythes, and they all began to plot. "Well done," Scythe Goddard said, more pleased than Rowan had ever seen him. "Very well done." Ambudrones began to descend from above, grasping his victims and spiriting them away to the nearest revival center. And Rowan found himself smiling. Something had torn loose inside him. He didn't know whether it was a good thing or not, and while part of him felt like falling to his knees and hurling up breakfast, another part of him wanted to howl to the moon like a wolf. A year ago, if you told me that I'd know how to wield more than 2,000 types of blades, that I would become an expert at firearms, and that I would know at least 10 ways to end a life with my bare hands, I would have laughed and suggested that you ought to get your brain chemistry tweaked. Amazing what can happen in just a few short months. Training under Scythe Goddard is different from under Scythe Faraday. It's intense, physical, and I can't deny that I'm getting better at everything I do. If I am a weapon, then I'm being sharpened against a greenstone every day. My second conclave is coming up in a few weeks. The first trial was nothing more than a simple questions. I'm told it will be different this next time. There's no telling what the apprentices will be expected to do. One thing's for sure. There will be serious consequences for me if I don't perform to Goddard's liking. I have every confidence that I will. From the Journal of Rowan Damisk, Scythe Apprentice. Chapter 25. Proxy of Death. The engineer liked to believe that his work at magnetic propulsion laboratories was useful, even though it had always appeared pointless. Magnetic trains were already moving as efficiently as they could. Applications for private transportation needed little more than tweaking. There was no more new and improved. There was just the trick of different, new styles and advertisements to convince that styliness was all the rage, but the basic technology remained exactly the same. In theory, however, there were new uses that were yet to be tapped, or else why would a Thunderhead put them to work? There were project managers who knew more about the ultimate goal of the work they did, but no one had all the pieces. Still, there was a speculation. It had long been believed that a combination of solar wind and magnetic propulsion would be required to move about in space with any efficiency. True, The prospect of space travel had been out of favor for many years, but that didn't mean it would always be. There had once been missions to colonize Mars, to explore Jupiter's moons, and even to launch to the stars beyond. But every mission had ended in utter and disastrous failure. Ships blew up, colonists died, and in deep space, death meant death, just as completely as if they had been cleaned. The idea of irrevocable death without the controlled hand of a scythe was too much to bear for a world that had conquered mortality. The public outcry shut down all space exploration. Earth was our sole home, and would remain so, which is why the engineers suspected the Thunderhead moved forward on this project so carefully and so slowly as not to draw the public's attention. It was by no means underhanded, because the Thunderhead was incapable of underhandedness. It was merely discreet, wisely discreet. One day, perhaps the Thunderhead would announce that while everyone was looking the other way, humanity had achieved a sustainable presence beyond the bounds of planet Earth. The engineer looked forward to that day, and fully expected he'd live to see it. He had no reason to expect that he wouldn't, until the day a team of Scythes laid siege to his research facility. Rowan was awakened at dawn by a towel hurled at his face. "Get up, Sleeping Beauty," Scythe Bolter said. "Shower and get dressed, today's the day." "Today's what day?" Rowan said, still too groggy to sit up. "Gleaning day," said Bolter. "You mean you guys actually glean? I thought you just partied and spent other people's money. Just get yourself ready, smartass." When Rowan turned off his shower, he heard the chop of helicopter blades, and when he came out onto the lawn, it was waiting for them. It was no surprise to Rowan that it was painted royal blue and studded with glistening stars. Everything inside Goddard's life was a testament to his ego. The other three Scythes were already out front, practicing their best kill moves. The ropes were bulky and clearly loaded down with all nature of weaponry sheathed within the folds. Chomsky torched a potted shrub with a flamethrower. "Really?" said Rowan. "A flamethrower?" Chomsky shrugged. "No law against it. And anyway, what business is it of yours?" Goddard strode out of the mansion. "What are you waiting for? Let's go." As if they hadn't all been waiting on him. The moment was charged with the adrenaline of anticipation, and as they strode toward the waiting helicopter, Rowan, for an instant, had an image of them as superheroes, until he remembered what their true purpose was, and the image shattered. "How many are you going to glean?" he asked Scythe Bolter, but Bolter just shook his head and pointed to his ear, too loud to hear Rowan over the chopper blades, which made the Scythe's ropes flail like flags in a storm as they crossed the lawn. Rowan did some calculations. Scythes were charged with 5 gleanings per week, and to the best of his knowledge, these 4 hadn't taken a life in the 3 months that Rowan had been there. That meant they could glean about 250 today and still be within their quota. This wasn't going to be a gleaning. It was going to be a massacre. Rowan hesitated, falling back as the others got him. Bolter noticed. "Is there a problem?" Bolter shouted over the deafening chop of the blades. But even if Rowan could make himself heard, he would never be understood. This is what Goddard and his disciples did. It was how they operated. This was business as usual. Could this ever be that way for him? He thought about his latest training sessions, the ones with living targets, the feeling he had when he had rendered all but one deadest revulsion, fighting a primal sense of victory. He felt that now as he stood at the entrance to the helicopter. With each step deeper into Goddard's world, it became harder and harder to retreat. All 4 Scythes were looking at him now. They were ready to go on their mission. The only thing holding them back was Rowan. "I am not one of them," he told himself. "I will not be cleaning. I will only be there to observe." He willed himself to step up into the helicopter, pull the door closed, and they rose skyward. "Never been up in one of these, have you?" Bolt asked, misreading Rowan's apprehension. "No, never." "It's the only way to travel," Scythe Rand said. "We are angels of death," said Scythe Goddard. "It is only fitting that we swoop in from the heavens." They flew south, over Fulcrum City, to the suburbs beyond. All the way, Rowan silently hoped the helicopter would crash, but realized what a pointless exercise that would be, because even if it did, they'd all be revived by the weekend. A helicopter landed on the main building's rooftop heliport. It was unexpected and announced, which never happened. The Thunderhead piloted just about everything airborne, and even if it was an off-grid chopper, someone on board would always announce their approach and request clearance. This thing just dropped from the sky and onto the roof. The closest security guard bounded up the stairs from the 6th floor and onto the roof, in time to see the Scythe stepping out. 4 of them. Blue, green, yellow, and orange, and a boy with an apprentice armband. The guard stood there, slug-jawed, unsure what to do. He thought to call this into the main office, but realized that doing so might get him clipped. The female Scythe, in green, with witchy dark hair and a Pan-Asian leaning to her, approached him, grinning. "Knock, knock," she said. He was too stunned to respond. "I said, knock, knock." "Who's there?" he finally responded. She reached into her robe, producing the most awful-looking knife the man had ever seen, but her arm was grabbed by the Scythe in blue before she could use it. "Don't waste it on him, Hein," he said to her. The Scythe in green put her knife away and shrugged. "Guess you'll miss the punchline." Then she stormed past him with the others, and down the stairs into the building. He caught the gaze of the apprentice, who lagged a few yards behind the others. "What should I do?" he asked the boy. "Get out," the boy told him, "and don't look back." So the guard did what he was told. He crossed to the far stairwell, bounded all the way down, burst out of the emergency exit, and didn't stop running until he was too far away to hear the screams. "We'll start up here on the 6th floor and work our way down," Goddard told the others. They came out of the stairwell to see a woman waiting for the elevator. She gasped and froze. "Boo," said Chomsky. The woman flinched, dropping the folder she carried. Rowan knew that any of the sides, on a whim, could have taken her out. She must have known that too, because she braced for it. "How high is your security clearance?" Goddard asked her. Level 1, she told him. "Is that good?" She nodded, and he took her security badge. "Thank you," he said. "You get to leave." And he moved toward the locked door, sweeping the car to gain entrance. Rowan found himself getting lightheaded and realized he was beginning to hyperventilate. "I should wait here," he told them. "I can clean. I should wait here." "No way," said Chomsky. "You come with us." But what use will I be? I'll just be in the way." The Scythe kicked in the glass of an emergency case, pulled out a fire hatchet, and handed it to him. "Here," she said. "Break stuff." "Why?" She winked at him. "Because you can." The employees in Suite 601, which took up the entire north half of the floor, had no warning. Scythe Goddard and his sides strode to the center of activity. "Attention," he announced in full theatrical voice. "Attention all. You have been selected for cleaning today. You are commanded to step forward and meet your demise." Murmurs, gasps, and cries of shock. No one stepped forward. No one ever did. Goddard nodded to Chomsky, Bolde, and Rand, and the 4 advanced through the maze of cubicles and offices, leaving nothing living in their wake. "I am your completion," intoned Goddard. "I am your deliverance. I am your portal to the mysteries beyond this life." Blades and bullets and flames. The office was catching fire. Alarms began to blur. Sprinkles gushed forth icy water from the ceiling. The doomed were caught between fire and water and the deadly sights of 4 master hunters. No one stood a chance. "I am your final word, your Omega, your bringer of peace and rest. Embrace me." No one embraced him. Mostly people cowered and pleaded for mercy, but the only mercy shown was the speed at which they were dispatched. "Yesterday you were gods. Today you are mortal. Your death is my gift to you. Accept it with grace and humility." So focused were the Scythes that none of them noticed Rowan slipping out behind them and crossing to Suite 602, where he pounded on the glass door until someone came and Rowan could warn him what was coming. "Take these back stairs," he told the man. "Get as many out as you can. Don't ask questions. Just go." If the man had any doubts, they were chased away by the sounds of desperation and despair coming from just across the hall. A few minutes later, when Goddard, Bolta, and Chomsky were done with Suite 601, they crossed the hall to find Suite 602 empty, save for Rowan, swinging his fire hatchet at computers and desks and everything in his path, doing exactly as he was told to do. The Scythes moved faster than the flames, faster than the flow of workers trying to escape. Bolt and Chomsky blocked two of the three stairwells. Rand made her way to the main entrance and stood like a goalie, taking out anyone trying to escape through the front doors. Goddard spotted his ritualistic litany as he moved through the panicked mob, switching his weapons as it suited him, and Rowan swung his hatchet at anything that would shatter, then secretly directed whoever he could toward the one unguarded stairwell. It was over in less than 15 minutes. The building was in flames, the helicopter was now hovering above, and the Scythes strode out of the front entrance, like the four horsemen of the post-mortal apocalypse. Rowan brought up the rear, dragging his hatchet on the marble until he dropped it with a clatter. Before them were half a dozen fire trucks and ambu drones, and behind that, hordes of survivors. Some ran when they saw the Scythes come out, but just as many stayed, their fascination overcoming their terror. "You see," Goddard told Rowan, "the firefighters can't interfere with a Scythe action. They'll let the whole thing burn down. And as for the survivors, we have a wonderful public relations opportunity." Then he stepped forward and spoke loudly to those who hadn't fled. "Our cleaning is complete," he announced. "To those who survive, we grant immunity. Come forward to claim it." He held out his hand, the one that bore his rank. The other Scythes followed his lead and did the same. No one moved at first, probably thinking it was a trick, but in a few moments, one sustained employee stumbled forward, followed by another, and then the entire mob was apprehensively coming toward them. The first few knelt and kissed the Scythe's ring, and once the others saw that this was for real, they surged forward, mobbing the Scythes. "Easy," shouted Bolta, "one at a time." But the same mob mentality that propelled their escape now pushed them toward those life-saving rings. All of a sudden, no one seemed to remember their dead co-workers. Then, as the crowd around them got denser and more agitated, Goddard pulled back his hand, removed his ring, and handed it to Rowan. "I'm tired of this," Goddard said. "Take it, sir, in the adoration." "But I can't. I'm not ordained." "You can use it if I give you permission as a proxy," Goddard told him. "And right now you have my permission." Rowan put it on, but it wouldn't stay, so he switched it to his index finger, where it was a bit more snug. Then he held out his hand as the other Scythes did. The crush of people didn't care which finger the ring was on, or even whose hand it was on. They practically climbed over one another to kiss it, and to thank him for his justice, his love, and his mercy, calling him "Your Honor," not even noticing that he wasn't a Scythe. "Welcome to life as a god," Scythe Bolta said to him, while behind them the building burned to the ground. "We are wise but not perfectful, insightful but not all-seeing. We know that by establishing the Scythedom, we will be doing something very necessary, but we, the first Scythes, still have our misgivings. Human nature is both predictable and mysterious, prone to great and sudden advances, yet still mired in despicable self-interest. Our hope is that by a set of 10 simple, straightforward laws, we can avoid the pitfalls of human fallibility. My greatest hope is that, in time, our wisdom will become as perfect as is our knowledge, and if this experiment of ours fails, we have also invented a way to escape it. May the Thunderhead help us all, if we ever need that escape." From the gleaning journal of Honorable Scythe Prometheus, the first Wall Supreme.